A good Erev Shabbos, everyone. Erev Shabbos Parshas Vayeishev. Erev Shabbos Chanukkah. We know in this week's Parsha we have the entire story of the throwing of Yosef into the pit. And the Torah tells us that when he got thrown into the pit, Habor Reik, the pit is empty, Ein Bo Mayim, it had no water. Rashi points out, Mayim Ein Bo, it has no water, but the Chashim Akrovim Yesh Bo, it had no water, but it did have snakes and scorpions inside of it. It was a dangerous place. The Ramban, Nachmanides, points out that those snakes and scorpions had to be inside of the cracks and crevices of this pit, or they were so deep that they couldn't be seen. Because had the brothers seen and known that there were scorpions and snakes inside of that pit, had they known that, and then Yosef would have come out alive, they would have realized this was a huge miracle. God is on his side, and they never would have taken him and sold him down to Mitzrayim, because they would have been afraid of him. They would have said, "Wow, he's got God with him. Look at the miracles that happened to him." And therefore, it has to be that the snakes and the scorpions were hidden away. They were beyond the ability to be able to see. But if that's the case, who cares? Then why do you have to even write it in a way that I would know that there were snakes and scorpions there? He's saved anyway, Yosef. Whether there were snakes and scorpions, there weren't snakes and scorpions, God saved him. The story we know. Why was it necessary to point out that there were no there were no water, but there was snakes and scorpions? The Antiochus, one of the great Kabbalistic interpreters of the Torah, says an incredible thing about Chanukkah. He says, in the days of Melech Yovan, Nifra Chet Shel Yosef, the sin of throwing Yosef into the pit was expiated. Yosef, Bigematria, Yosef is in numerical valuation the same as Melech Yovan, the king of Greece. And V'hinei b'yimei Yovan, and in the days of Melech Yovan, one of the decrees that they made was that you had to write on Keren Shor, you had to write on the horns of an ox, Ein lanu chelik be'elokei Yisrael, that we have no portion in the God of Israel. I want us to wonder, why is the Megala Mukas pointing this out to us? Why do I care, other than the fact that it's way cool that Yosef's gematria, Yosef's numerical value is the same as Melech Yovan? And why do I care that the Yavanim made this decree right on the ox of a horn, which also has to do with Yosef, because we know that Keren Shor is the name that was given to Yosef by his father, the description that was given to him by his father. The Bnei Yisachar even tosses in that the Antiochus, that name Antiochus, which was the name of the Syrian general, the Syrian Greek general, that was also Bigimatria, the same as Yosef. Why do I need to tie Yosef into the story of Chanukkah? What does Yosef have to do with the story of Chanukkah? Why is it that it sort of came to fruition and came to a head in the time of the Syrian Greeks? What happened with Yosef happened a long time before then. What's the connection between the two? We know that Yaakov Avinu, when he went, before he got to Rachel and Leah, he spent 14 years in Yeshiva Shem Ve'ever, 14 years studying in the yeshiva of the children and grandchildren of Noach. Commentaries ask the question, what in the world was he studying there? He had learned from Avram and Yitzchak. He learned everything he could possibly learn. What was he learning there? And our rabbis explained that what he was learning there was a thing called Torah's Galus. He was learning the Torah of exile there. He was learning how to live with God and godliness in a hostile environment, in a place that wasn't predisposed for that kind of existence. And when it says that Yosef gave Yaakov everything that he had, Yaakov gave Yosef everything that he had, that's what he gave to Yosef. It says that Yosef was ben Shvas Rishon, he was 17 years old. Why did we point out 17 years old? Because it was a 14-year lesson that he taught him. And it started at the age of 3, because that's the age of chinuch, that's the age when you start educating a child. 3 plus 14 brings him to 17. Because that's exactly what Yaakov was doing to Yosef. He was teaching him how to live in a hostile world. Yosef goes down to Mitzrayim. For whatever reason, he begins to make himself similar to his surroundings. Mrs. Potiphar grabs onto him, grabs onto his coat. She wants to bring him in completely. And it says that Yosef saw Dmusti Yukana Shalaviv, he saw the image of his father. What it means that he saw the image of his father is that he saw the image of a real Jew, and he realized, I can't assimilate, I can't let myself go. I have to hold on to what I have. That's why it has to tell us that there were snakes and scorpions there. Because it has to tell me that this is what Yosef was all about. Stay separate from your environment. It started in that pit. Don't let those snakes and scorpions get to you. He comes into Mitzrayim, and he has to be given that message again that he learned from his father for 14 years. Stay away from the snakes and scorpions. Stay away from the things that could bring you down. Stay away from the things that want to assimilate you and want to bring you into their culture. And we know that that was what Yovan was all about. Yovan was all about Lashkicham Teresecha, was all about making us forget our Torah, Ulavira Mechuke Ritzeinecha, and to get us off the path of God's beautiful statutes. The Chashmonoim, their entire existence was, like Yosef before them, not to mix in, to stay separate, not to allow themselves in any way to buy in to the Syrian Greek culture. You know, the whole miracle happened with oil. You have to wonder, why did it happen with oil? The miracle could have happened in a lot of other ways. If there needed to be another accentuating miracle besides the miracle of the war, it could have happened with many, many things. Why oil? Because what's oil? Says, so the Medrash says, Ma ro Yirmiyahu limshol avisenu kizayas. What did the Yirmiyahu see to liken our forefathers to zayas, to olives, to olive oil? Elakola mashkim misarvin zebazeh. All liquids mix in with each other. V'Hashem and enu misarv, but oil doesn't mix in. Ela omid, it stands there. It separates. Kach Yisrael enu misarvin min va'ovdei kochavim. The same thing with the Jews. We don't mix in with the ovdei kochavim. Shenemar lo tischaten bam, that we can't marry them. We have to stay separate from them. Oil is the very symbol of the antithesis of what the Syrian Greeks were trying to do to us. They were trying to get us to assimilate and to become part of them. And the oil says, no, stay separate. That's why v'timu kol hashmanim, the oil, since it symbolized separating and staying unique, staying special. Davka, that was their enemy. That's what the Syrian Greeks went after. Timu kol hashmanim, they made all the shemen impure. And that's why we found that one cruse of oil, because it was a very small amount of people that held tight and held true to what they were and to what their principles and values were. That's the message of Chanukkah. Haneres halalu kaideshem. When are these Haneres halalu? When are these lights going to light? When are they going to illuminate? Only when kaideshem, only when they're unique and they're special, when they're separated, when they're lit from oil and they separate from the things around them. That's the connection between Melech Yovan, the king of Yovan, Antiochus, and Yosef. Because Yosef's whole machus, his whole essence, was to stay separate and not to be sucked in. And that's exactly what Melech Yovan wanted to do, what Antiochus wanted to do to the Jewish people, to the children of Yosef. Wanted to get them, to dilute them, to be able to be ma'arav them, to be able to mix them in. But they were unsuccessful. It didn't happen. And when we light that shemen, when we stand on Chanukkah and we light that oil reminds us of what happens when you stay separate, when you stay like oil, when you don't mix in with the things around you. For 2,000 years of persecution, we have stayed separate and not assimilated. And as long as we remain like oil, as long as we remain like Yosef Hatzadik, as long as we see Dmusti Yukanish Alaviv, as long as we see our past in our eyes, as long as we recognize that we're connected to something powerful and amazing, as long as we stay unique and special, Haneres Halalu, Kaideshem, they will forever be a symbol of our separateness, our uniqueness, and our specialness. We can't just use them. We can't just become part of what's around us and just utilize everything around us. We have to stay separate and unique. And when we say separate and unique, then we are there, lahodos ulahalal. Our very existence gives praise to God and gives praise to the fact that we are his special people who continue to remain illuminated from generation to generation, l'olam void, forever. We should have the schus as we light our own menorahs this year. We should have the schus to be inspired by that notion that what we have to walk away from Chanukkah is don't let ourselves get sucked into the things around us, but stay bright, stay lit, stay illuminated, and stay holy. Shabbos.